In 1963, amateur astronomer Patrick Moore described a crater he discovered in a potato field in Wiltshire, which he assumed was caused by a fallen meteorite. In nearby wheat fields, there were several circular and elliptical areas where the wheat had been flattened in a geometric pattern. He believed they were caused by air currents from the impact since they led towards the crater. Astronomer Hugh Ernest Butler observed similar craters and deduced that they were likely caused by lightning strikes. These may have been the first witness accounts of this phenomenon reported in modern era before there was a term to describe them. These oddly ornate patterns came to be known as spiral flattening, more commonly called crop circles. In the early 1970s, even more bizarre geometric shapes began to manifest overnight in the wheat fields of Wiltshire, England. The designs at first were simple circles, giving rise to the name crop circles. But as the 70s and 80s went on, the patterns became more detailed and elaborate. These unexplained crop circles led by many to speculate that a new, mysterious, supernatural phenomenon was happening. It seems, however, that spiral flattening may have been much older than the 70s. Take the story of the mowing devil, for example, perhaps the earliest known reference to crop circles. The written account of England's mowing devil is dated to 1678 and tells of an incident in Hertfordshire. According to the story, a wealthy farmer offered to pay an impoverished neighbor to cut his field of oats at a reduced rate. Struggling for income, the neighbor agreed at first, but eventually the deal fell through as the two men could not reach an agreement on cost. As they parted ways, it was less than amicable. The impoverished farmer realized that if he upset the wealthy farmer, he wouldn't get hired for future jobs. Desperate, he ran after the wealthy farmer and explained his change of heart. Still insulted, the wealthy farmer responded, the devil should mow his oats before he would allow the impoverished farmer the opportunity. The next morning, to the surprise of the wealthy farmer, he found something unbelievable in his oat fields. Perfect circles spanning an acre and a half had been cut into his field. In the report of this incident, witnesses stated they believed the work in the fields was done by the devil himself due to the complexities and the precision of it. The report details how every straw was laid down with such exactness that it would have been impossible for a human to accomplish this feat, especially in the short time frame of just one night and under the cover of darkness. Since its first witnesses, this phenomenon has always had the same resemblance, conditions, and no direct eyewitnesses. To account for humans fashioning these extraordinarily most complex crop circles created in the cover of night. Although it is true, there are a few individual hoaxers who have created their own crop circles as an elaborate art form, they also claim to be the sole creators of all crop circles found in the English countryside. If that is true, then how do they explain the historical prevalence of spiral flattening found in the history books beginning in the 1600s? This phenomenon stretches far beyond the boundaries of England, with over 1,000 crop circles spanning the globe. Doug Bowler and Dave Chorley are hoaxers who claimed responsibility for creating all of the crop circles discovered in England prior to 1987. They claim to have popularized crop circles and revealed the techniques they used to create them. With something as simple as a wooden plank and rope, they would create large circles in the fields. They would use the plank to forcefully flatten the crops. Using such simple yet crude tools to trample over the crops results in the stalks being damaged and breaking to create these elaborate designs. However, in 1991, biophysicist Dr. William C. Levengood studied the stalks of crops from several spiral flattening anomalies, and his results were shocking. Over a decade-long study, he discovered the stalks were exposed to high levels of electromagnetic and microwave radiation. This exposure caused the stalks to become supple and bend without breaking and not kill the plant. The technology to induce such an effect to a plant on a scale like this simply does not currently exist. This has led experts and critics alike to believe that approximately 20% of spiral flattening are not man-made. Political activist on the ET visitation issue, Stephen Bassett, shared with us his insights into crop circles and how Doug and Dave's story fits in with the overall phenomena.
That meant all the media had to go interview Doug and Dave and say, well, that's it. And they actually would go out and say, yeah, well, now we know what it is. which if I was one of those reporters or what, I would just retire now. I'd just give up the field unless they've grown. No, Doug and Dave made a few circles, I have no doubt, but they didn't make all the circles. Okay, so, but then, here's what I love about this. The ETs, if they wanted to, could plop a circle down in Afghanistan and one in Brazil, and then they could park one up in the tundra of Siberia, whatever the hell. You can put them anywhere they want, but where's that? Where's the messaging there, right? And besides, if you put a crop circle down in Afghanistan and some out in the wilderness, could have been a human circle, could have been a human glyph that had weeks to prepare it. So, no, it's not going to do it. What we're going to do is we're going to come back to the same fields year after year after year and keep putting them down in the same place. Whoa, it's kind of a challenge to the humans. Okay, catch us if you can. And people started going there, teams of people, reams of people. Over the years, they started bringing more and more technology, night vision goggles and sound pickups and all kinds of stuff to try to see these circles getting built. There's one video that seems to show one being built. Could be true. Very impressive, and it made sense, but whatever. And then that wasn't enough. They started bringing airplanes. They started bringing ultralight airplanes and flying over the fields. Wow, that's a substantial escalation of where it was when a couple of circles turned up in, I don't know, Hampshire or Shropshire or whatever. Now they're flying ultralights over the fields. Well, guess what happens when they got to that level? And that is when it got cool. That's when the case was closed. Not for the media, of course, not for the fine academics at Cambridge and Oxford and whatever that are sitting there in their comfortable offices contemplating the world and trying to ignore anything that challenged their worldview, is that people would fly over a field at noon and they'd come back at 12:10 and there'd be a 2-3 acre crop circle there. And Doug and Dave can't work that fast. And that's all we needed to know.
或者麦子地，旁边呢有一个山坡。
Смысл загадочных рисунков пытался разгадать мой коллега Павел Придовик.
Персик тоже по ночам рисует на злаковых. В Тольятти по поводу авторства редкое единодушие.
You'll love a good mystery, and chances are you've seen pictures of crop circles that have popped up around the world.
In France, it's Vimy, France. Some people have been traveling hundreds of kilometers to visit it.
Presentar una serie de evidencias que se han venido dando en los últimos años. Esta es una recreación, quiero ser muy claro, esta es una recreación, ¿no?, de cómo pensamos que se hacen estos mensajes en los campos de cultivo en Inglaterra.
In this report, we will present the analysis and the history of crucial evidence which demonstrates that crop circles, and specifically the most complex formations found in England, are legitimate, that they are created by a technology beyond what we are capable of. Carefully observe what was recorded at dawn on August 11th, 1996, in the crops of Oliver Castle, the United Kingdom. Unidentified spheres circle near the corn crop, and while they do so, a pattern slowly appears in the field on a video recorded at that time. We interviewed one of the greatest experts in regards to these formations appearing in England, researcher Gary King, who discussed with us the significance of this authentic video. Thanks for joining us, Gary. So, the Oliver Castle incident is one of the most representative in the history of crop circles. Why is that?
The Oliver's Castle incident is a big one in crop circle history. Even to this day, I can't quite believe that people still consider it to be a hoax. Let me walk you through it. In the summertime of 1996, a young man, 19-year-old man called John Whaley, came down to Wiltshire to visit crop circles. One night, he decided he was going to do a night watch. He asked various people in the barge inn if anybody wanted to join him, but because it was wet and cold and raining, nobody wanted to go with him. So he went along on his own, set up his tent, and during the night, just around 4 o'clock in the morning, as it became light, he was awoken by some sounds. He opened the zip of his tent, and to his absolute amazement, noticed that there were these orbs, white orbs of light flying around in the field. He grabbed his camcorder and handheld filmed these orbs flying around the field for more than 15 minutes. He was completely transfixed by them. When it finished, he grabbed his camera and excitedly wanted to tell people, but there was no one around. It was dawn. So he drove to the barge inn. Now, the first contact that I understand people made with him was around 10:30, 11 o'clock at the barge inn, when all people who were camping there or turned up there as their normal day's activities started to arrive. And he ran around showing people the video that he'd captured on his camcorder. Now, during the playback of this, it was noticed that these orbs weren't just flying around the field, but that during that time, a crop circle actually appeared beneath the orbs flying over the field. John hadn't noticed this himself, he told people. He just saw the orbs of light. He was so transfixed on those.
That's amazing.
So the video was at absolute astonishment. I wasn't there myself to witness the video, but there were many people I know and have spoken to who were there, and including Polly Carson, the farmer, Francine Blake, and a number of others, and they were completely surprised and convinced that this was the evidence needed to prove that something serious was going on with the crop circles. Now, what happened after that is pretty typical of what we've seen so many times in the crop circle and UFO field. A man called Peter Sorensen, who'd been turning up summer after summer, claiming he was just an enthusiast and flying over and taking pictures of crop circles, he convinced John Whaley that he needed to give the video film to him and that he would do something with it. John, being a young man, trusted this guy, gave him the video, and I don't know what happened in between, and it's all a bit sketchy, but Peter Sorensen came back sometime later and claimed it was stolen, and he only had 15 seconds or something left of the footage that he'd managed to edit or save or whatever. And that's the footage that you now see on most YouTube videos, which has been copied and copied and copied again to make it look less authentic. A man called Everard, Christopher Everard from Australia, from Nexus magazine, sent the video footage off to a laboratory in London and had it analysed. And this is where it gets interesting from an evidence point of view. This footage was filmed on 1996 technology, camcorder technology, not very sophisticated at the time, and it was filmed handheld. Now, this is an important point, because when you watch the short footage that you can see that's available on YouTube, you'll notice that the horizon line is fixed in the background, but the camera is constantly moving up and down as these orbs are being filmed. Now, those cameras worked on a 25 frame per second basis, so every single frame of the footage is in a different elevation as it was from the previous frame, and yet the orbs maintain their exact height over the crop, frame by frame by frame. And when you watch the analysis of the video, you will notice that there are no trowels, there are no artifacts that would normally be associated with faking or animating things like this. Second point, it was claimed, funnily enough, by Matthew Williams afterwards, that John Whaley had run to a studio in Bristol after the incident, after the crop circle was there, and had some people animate the balls of light and animate the crop circle appearing in about 5 hours before he got to the barge inn and showed everybody. Now, the problem with this is that in 2004, documentary filmmaker Terry Toffness decided to see if he could fake this kind of video. And so he went to some Disney animators and showed them the footage and said, okay, using the latest sort of technology that you've got in 2004, could you fake this, and how long would it take you, what would it involve, etc., etc. And these guys told him they'd need at least 4 days, and they didn't know whether they could make it look as good. There would be artifacts and there would be things that would be detectable. Now, that's a very important point. Today, technology, even desktop technology and motion graphics programs, something like this could be made more convincingly. but we're talking 1996, and we're talking a young man, 19, who not only had to fake a video, but also had to be in the right place at the right time where a crop circle, which we know wasn't there the night before, appeared the following morning. Now, when we analysed the formation, Michael Glickman did a serious amount of analysis on the formation. We found that it was perfectly geometrically constructed. It had hidden seven-fold geometry within the design and was very, very elegantly laid out and quite large in this field. So what we have is a field where no crop circle was there the night before. Again, through 5 hours of darkness, we then see a very big, large, complex, elegant formation. And during this time, we're supposed to believe that a young man ran off to Bristol, faked a video in a couple of hours, which even in 2004 couldn't have been done, and then rushed back to the barge to convince everybody, and then just gave it away to a man who subsequently lost it. I've always believed that this has been a genuine, where we have witnessed something happening with a crop circle, and it has been debunked, lied about, to a large extent for many, many years.
Gary King himself was involved in a mysterious crop circle event that seemed to materialize instantaneously. The event was called 777, and to this date, he maintains that this was what convinced him that not all crop circles were made by man.
In the morning, about 1:30 a.m, we arrived here on Knapp Hill to begin a night vigil overlooking East Field here in the background. When we got here, we met up with a cameraman called Weir, who had a set of cameras set up here on the hill, and also some cameras set up on his vehicle, which he brought through into the field down below. He showed us, when we got here, he showed us an image intensifier device that he had, and we scanned across the field. It was like looking at the field in sort of daylight, you know, it brought in more light. And we scanned across East Field and across the field of rape here and the Drovers Road and this field of wheat here, and we could see that there was no formations in the field at that time. Then we sat here then, just talking and overlooking the field until about 3 o'clock. Just after 3 o'clock, we had a big white flash of light that completely encompassed the landscape and the sky. It was around that time that Wynne had to go down to his vehicle to change the tapes over. So he went down and done that and came back up to the hill. And at that point in the evening, it was completely dark. What we were looking down on was a completely black field. We couldn't see anything at that point. About 20 minutes after that, as some of the light began to creep in from the east over there, we started to see a shadow of what looked like some sort of formation down below, but it was still too imperceptible, really, for the naked eye to see. So Wynne got up and looked through his camera, which has an image-enhancing kind of capability. And through the lens of the camera, we could clearly see this formation that was laid out here in the field before us. So at the point of seeing that on that camera and the point of realising that this may be something that people might sit up and take notice finally, I was just jumping for joy, and I still am.
I was very excited, but I was in a bit of shock as well. Gary was dancing around and I was sort of jigging. I was, you know, just
Is this real? Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
The figure of August 11th, 1996 in Oliver Castle actually existed and was recognized as legitimate from the beginning. In Mexico, the special effects expert Josue Hernandez analyzed the evidence and told us that the video was authentic. He discovered there exists a previous recording, a panoramic version, where the figure doesn't quite appear yet.
Se ve que no es una fotografía porque hay plantas moviéndose en la parte baja, entonces es un video, eso le da más veracidad. También ver el movimiento de las esferas es muy orgánico, se mueven con ligereza. Yo creo que una persona no pudo haber hecho este video en su casa en ese tiempo.
The researcher, Andrew Buckley, noted an unidentified orb overflying the crops where the circles appeared on July 18, 2000. Observe carefully again the presence of an unidentified sphere. Here is another instance of video evidence as provided by an anonymous witness, who in August of the same year recorded an orb which quickly travels over the crops. Surprising yet authentic evidence which relates to a phenomenon that is real. England's crop circles, or spiral flattening, were made by technology which is simply beyond the capabilities of humanity.
Ну как ветер дует оттуда вот, с запада. Почему он не приближается к нам? Почему он остановился и там висит?
Moscow has had an exponential increase in the number of sightings that have managed to catch the attention of researchers at an international scale, which confirm they have been living a UFO wave since late 2011. Are these orbs some kind of technology used to examine the activities of humans? They can be seen anywhere, in public, our own homes, or even national monuments, such as Niagara Falls. On March 25th, 2018, a security camera with a panoramic view of this important touristic destination caught an orb, which quickly flew over the waterfalls. Look at these images closely. The object is coming directly from the background of the recording, flying at a low level and moving quickly in a perfectly horizontal line. Its speed is also important to note. Zooming in, we can notice the shape of the object. A luminous sphere. It crosses directly over the falls. Another example at this point in Canada, when a tourist was surprised by an orb that is moving a few meters from the waterfall. It goes inside the cascade and then comes out again to fly away. How is this possible? Its quick speed is something to take note of as well. Afterward, it disappears, simply vanishes. Obviously, this is a piece of technology that we cannot truly understand, yet someone or something has access to it. Jaime Maussan, a famous Mexican journalist, has been covering ET-related research for over 40 years. We sat down with him and asked his thoughts on what he learned from his time covering crop circles as they appeared over the years.
I have investigated them in Mexico, I have investigated them in Brazil, and also in England, mostly in England. But I know they appear in Germany, they appear in France, in Czechoslovakia, in Spain. There are many other places where you can find these crop formations.
What are your thoughts?
Because they are perfect, because they appear in the middle of the night, because they are very complex, very big, because nobody has proven to do these formations under that conditions. I have offered for a long time $100,000 to anyone that comes to me and proves that he can do a complex formation in the middle of the night with no lights and not leaving any trace. And we would have to record this, how it's done, and anybody who does that and willing to pay a big quantity of money to prove that this is not possible. The only thing you have to do is you have to get the land, you have to have an agreement with the farmer, you have to tell me, this is the formation I'm gonna do, and you have to do it. And we have to record you. But if you do it, it doesn't have to be perfect, but mostly very well done, and I pay you $100,000. Once you become familiarized with this formation, it's very easy to see when something is real and when something is not. The ones that are not is the arrangements inside the formation. When you are close, you are looking to the grass. It's so obvious that they are not perfect. When they are perfect, the plants are not broken. When they are perfect, inside the plants, if you analyze the crystals inside the plants, you can find microscopic bubbles of metal joined to the plant, like if they were melted from the terrain into the plant. There are many ways to prove that this is a real phenomenon.
There are other energy phenomena that have been scientifically documented which prove that crop circles are created with a technology that we do not understand. In England, our crew visited the main museum of Wiltshire, where we observed an exhibition titled Exploring the Mystery and Beauty of Crop Circles. The museum's curator, Monique Klickenberg, revealed the scientific research dating back over 10 years, which indicates that not all crop circles are created by human hands.
Why did you organize this exhibition of the crop circles here in the Bassett?
Well, I've been asked.
The museum asked Monique to create an exhibition, and we thought it was an excellent idea, taking the topic to another level in different aspects. The exhibition centers around formations that are not man-made. This is something that interests us as researchers. The scientific studies were carried out for a decade by the BLT Group and Dartmouth College, with researchers in Europe, Canada, and the United States. They took samples of over 250 crop circles to carry out an evaluation of physical changes that plants in the soil underwent. It was determined that where crop circles appeared, plants are deformed by an electromagnetic radiation that alters its very molecular structure in a mysterious way. This unusual high-temperature technology hits between 6,000 and 8,000 degrees Celsius that doesn't burn the plants, but does deform them. The nodes inside the core of the plant can increase its size up to 172% in comparison to an average-sized node in control plants. Seeds atrophy. They don't develop or grow the same way. It was determined that amongst the plants where a crop circle appears, mysterious tiny orbs appear measuring between 10 and 40 ohm. They are tiny iron spheres charged with magnetism as a result of the energy that was generated from the appearance of a crop circle. In this way, the studies of the BLT Group and Dartmouth College confirmed that crop circles or spiral flattenings are made with a technology that is beyond our reach.
Unfortunately, humans, like always, when something extraordinary happens, we claim that we are the ones who did this extraordinary thing. And since no one is going to tell you that it's not true, you can get the credit for you very easily. But again, why, if the farmers are so mad with this, they have not captured anyone doing that to their fields? You have to ask yourself, in 40 years of this phenomenon, no one so far has been caught doing it? Then, because there is no one doing it, when Gary King was there on 777 in the middle of the night, and he was watching the terrain. He stopped watching for a few minutes. Then this flash came, and he went back immediately to see the field. The formation was just there. How can that be? And then people attacking him, people saying that this is not true. He has the pictures to prove it, that he was there in the middle of the night, in the morning when nobody was there. He's the first one to find this formation. But you see, it's easier to attack anybody who stand up and say this is true than to find the truth by themselves.
Well, it's the 22nd of April 2017, and we have a third crop circle for the 2017 season. At Waden Hill, just opposite the beautiful historic site of Avebury. It's a crescented design with a kind of cube shape or structure in the middle. We're going to go in and take a closer look and see what the condition of the lay is. Why don't you come and join us? So immediately upon entering the formation, looking to the left, I notice this whole swathe of rape laid down, and the first stems that I look at, I notice are not broken at the base. There is a slight break to the leaf here, which we could discern that was caused by foot traffic, but it's not broken at the base, and there are no discernible scrape marks anywhere to be found up the stem. The leaves are still intact, the petals of the flowers are still intact, and as I look across at other stems, you can see that these aren't broken at the base either. They're kind of bent over in a curve, and there are no scrape marks or crushing marks that you would normally associate with a board pressing these plants down. So I'm just walking forward into the crop circle now. The crop itself is very buoyant, lifted off the ground, particularly towards the edges. We're walking uphill now, so that's an indication this crop circle is not on flat ground. Let's take a look at some of these stems here. I'm now at the centre of the formation, just outside the cube-shaped design in the pathways that run around the outside of it. And what I notice here is about an 18-inch wide gap of damage, which seems to me to indicate this is where some people who visited the formation have walked. Because as I look off to the edges, we notice that the plants are undamaged at the base and the stems, just like we've seen previously. But in this area here, where it seems people have walked through, we can notice crushing, flowers damaged, leaf scrapes, etc., etc. It's the 25th of May 2017, and I'm here underneath the famous White Horse at Milk Hill for the third of this season's barley formations. It's a cross-type design with circles on each corner, and one of the circles has a kind of scalloped edged design to it on the outside. The lay itself looks beautiful and crisp, buoyant and springing back up to the light. We're going to walk around now and have a look at some of the finer details. Come and join us. I'm now at the edge of the design on one of the scalloped edges, and what you can see is the barley is laid down beautifully, cutting itself into the standing crop, flowing around and laying itself back over the main pathway. And at the centre here, just at the edge, there's a circle type design where the barley itself is laid over the main body of crop. One of the beautiful features of crop circles is attention to detail. And I've noticed over the years an effect where a single row of crop is left at the edge and not flattened with the main body of crop that you see here, but is left sort of half standing up, positioned right against the standing crop on the perimeter. It's as if it gives the effect of water splashing up and down, and it follows itself along all the way along the perimeter. Another beautiful feature of these scalloped edges is as the crop itself flows around and cuts into the standing crop, it comes back out and covers over the pathway that runs around the edge. And the way it cuts around and lays back over and sort of feathers itself over, just once again adds that kind of
beautiful touch that we often see in formations. So we're at the edge of the pathway now that runs around the perimeter of this scalloped type design at the edge of the formation. And when it gets to the end of the pathway, instead of turning like an abrupt 90 degrees to go off in that direction, we have a sort of feathered in part of the barley laying into the standing crop here.
Okay, so messaging. But what's the message? My theory, simple. The crop circles may contain information. Well, any geometric image does, but it could be secret, exotic, I don't know. And there's been plenty of efforts of that, very sophisticated stuff. They rotate them, all kinds of things. I don't know about that. But the very presence of them is a message. Right? They're beautiful, we know that. They're not particularly destructive. The farmers don't lose much. They harvest that material. So they're not too destructive. Actually, people take photographs of them, and they're very beautiful, and then they'll put them up in their refrigerators. You walk into a apartment in San Jose or something, and somebody will have a crop circle thing on their refrigerator. It's kind of nice.
So do you think it's the least destructive way possible to just kind of like make a mark on the land or just say we're here? Is that...
Well, it is a very non-destructive way to do it. It is a very clever and fascinating way to say we're here. But it's not just more, it's more than that, because the escalating complexity of the circles seems to indicate that there is, this is going somewhere, that something's coming, right?
3 or 4 days later, the answer to the message that was sent in 16th of November 1974 by Carl Sagan and Frank Drake from the Arecibo radio telescope to the Hercules constellation, which is 22,000 light years away. And we have the response 27 years after that. In their response, they tell us they are similar to us in many ways. The chemistry is the same, the genome is the same, but their genome is more developed. They tell us they are more creatures than us here on Earth. They live in 3 different planets in their solar system, and so on. There is so much information right there. That is why it's, for me, so important. Also, the Chilbolton phase, which appeared 1 year after that, with this, the alien face, with this disc in the hand, and it has a message there, and tell us much pain, but still time. And for me, that was very important. It's like telling us that something is gonna happen. I don't know when, how, but we have received that information very often. It happened again in 2008 with this formation where you have this cross with one word in a bars code. This word is beware. Beware is related to the other one. It means that we have to be alert because something could happen. Something that is going to come from the outside to the inside.
Este año, estas figuras no solamente se presentaron en Inglaterra, sino en lugares como Alemania, en Francia, en Italia. Aquí le presento algunas de las más significativas fuera del territorio inglés. Por cierto, aquí en la propia Inglaterra, no todas aparecieron donde suelen hacerlo cada año, sino en lugares más alejados. Fernando Correa.
En este reporte le presentaremos las formaciones más importantes que han aparecido fuera de Inglaterra en 2014. El fenómeno de los mensajes en los cultivos continúa expandiéndose a otros países desde hace más de una década. Comenzamos con una formación que posiblemente representa una antena. Apareció de la noche a la mañana el 18 de julio de 2014 junto a las radioantenas de telecomunicaciones en los cultivos de Ammersee en Alemania. Una figura que podría representar una especie de antena para alguna clase de comunicación y que nos hace pensar que posiblemente en 2015 en este mismo cultivo aparecerán otras formaciones, tal como ocurrió en Inglaterra, cuando junto al radiotelescopio de Chilbolton en 2001 apareció esta figura que luego se conoció era una antena. Y al año siguiente, en 2002, apareció la figura La respuesta al mensaje de Sagan y Drake. Y al final de la formación, la figura que equivale a esta clase de antena.
For multiple UFO researchers around the world, the formation of crop circles in England is the most noteworthy topic, as controversial as UFOs themselves. In 2008, the longest and most focused season of circles, which had eclipses as the main theme, occurred. It was also characterized by the most complex crop circles ever seen over the past 20 years. We will now chronologically show you the last year's most noteworthy crop circles. On April 19th in Wadden Hill, Avebury, the first crop circle of the 2008 season appeared, an image that showed a spiral with 6 arms and at its center a great circle, a simple design. A more complex one was captured in the crops of June 1st in the area of Barbury Castle, which represents the number of pi up to its 10th decimal, which shows you the level of complexity this phenomenon has achieved. On June 10th, in the area of Northdown, another image was found, a circle symbolizing total solar eclipses on top of that. It also represents the back of a turtle, which contains the magic square of numbers that always add up to 15. However, on June 15th, this crop circle we see now showed up with what happens to be the solar system, where we can see each planet in its orbit, at the center, the King's Star. This cross was found on July 17th. Its arms point toward the 4 cardinal points, and its tips end in spirals or flames, which represents the sun. At the center, we can see the positions of Earth and Venus in an astronomical phenomenon called superior conjunction. This figure tells us about the positions of the planet Venus, which it will have in the future. Another of the surprising images is one that was formed in Southfield on July 22nd, and that has been interpreted as pigeons. At first, this section was found, and the next day, on July 23rd, another section was added on either side, which seems to tell us that whoever sent this message wasn't quite satisfied and added more information. On July 27th, in Ashbury Smithy, this square formed by dozens of differently sized circles appeared. The circles are crossed at its center by a series of circumferences, horizontal and vertically. We can see how in each design there are 5 smaller ones, which achieve a visual harmony that some researchers have claimed represent a mandala that symbolizes calm and inner peace. This crop circle that appeared on August 1st in Oxfordshire, we can see 3 complex designs that appear to be blades and that are tied to each other through lines. Next to it, we can see a wind turbine. Specialists say that generally, crop circles take elements of the sites where they appear. For this reason, it is said that this circle is prompting humans to opt for clean energies so that we can survive in the future. A similar shape with blades appeared on July 7th in Chair Hill, Wiltshire. We can appreciate an 8-blade formation around a circle with shapes that simulate a flower. A very beautiful shape. While the world watched the special broadcast of the inauguration of the Olympic Games in Beijing, China, in England on August 8th, the most noteworthy shape appeared in Alton Barnes. It is a formation with the number 8. It also has the infinity symbol, which is why researchers on this subject consider that apart from the size, which rounded up to be over 200 meters long, with around 100 differently sized circles, where each one was 20% smaller than its predecessor. Without a doubt, we can see the perfection with which these circles were traced. In this other shape, which was formed on August 14th, we can see a pentagon inside a circle that researchers related to the one in the United States, where the neighboring country's war intelligence is found.
In Mexico, in November 2011, we had a formation where you can clearly see a meteorite coming to Earth. 14 months later, on February 15, 2013, we have a crash from a meteorite in Chelyabinsk in Russia. Okay? There is a relation right there. In Chelyabinsk, we had so many sightings from 2011. On the 20th of December 2011, more than 20 people recorded a sphere going around the city. And 12, 13, 14 months later, we have this meteorite in the very same place. And we found in a video an object coming from behind, hitting the meteorite and destroying the meteorite, like if someone protected us from that. In Russia, they believe that. They believe the ETs helped them not to be more affected by this meteorite. The accident in Chelyabinsk was very similar to the one in Chernobyl, but the world didn't find out. I don't know if that's the reason of so many sightings in the area in 2011 and 2012. In Mexico, people said, Jaime, you have been presenting so many videos from Chelyabinsk, exactly the same place where the meteorite hit. How is that possible? And I said, yeah, how is that possible? I didn't know about Chelyabinsk. I didn't know existed Chelyabinsk. I learned it because of so many evidences there.
Each year, on the wheat fields in England, unexplainable images transmitting different messages appear. Attempts at discrediting them have been made. However, the designs continue to manifest in a matter of hours through the cloak of night.
En este caso, el propietario de este terreno permite que podamos estar aquí debido a que las personas que vienen a este lugar hacen un donativo y este va a ser utilizado en la lucha contra el cáncer aquí en Inglaterra. Me parece una buena idea y es algo que deberían de recoger todos los propietarios de los campos donde aparecen las figuras, porque finalmente es algo que todos queremos disfrutar, ver, estar, sentir, porque estos campos tienen energía. Incluso cuando estas formaciones son cortadas, un año después se puede observar lo que estaba aquí, o sea, la energía queda en el lugar. Les llaman formaciones fantasmas. Y a veces 2 o 3 años después aún se sigue viendo, aunque no exista, pues vamos a decir, el aplanamiento, el peinado del cultivo. De tal manera que, bueno, ahora vamos a hacer...
Is it an attempt at communicating or an elaborate hoax? In 2013, our crew traveled all the way to England to observe and record their formations like they had never been seen before. With the help of multi-rotor drones, we were able to get aerial images that speak for themselves, not only of the beauty, but of the perfection with which these designs are created. This is one of the greatest mysteries of our time. For some, it is the most important event that happens in our world. The message is sometimes mathematic and sometimes astronomical, or even in binary code, suggest the possibility to start communicating with other intelligent forms. If they are extraterrestrials, or if it is a prank, they have become one of the most representative forms of ephemeral art in our lifetimes.
Por allá está, por el Picacho. Qué barbaridad, se movió.
2018, in the crop fields of England in the area of Dorset. This formation appeared in the crops of the Buckland Down Farm, where a telecommunications antenna exists. This extraordinary shape, almost 70 meters wide, appeared overnight. Look closely at the details this shape holds. In the center, we can see a circle from which 4 main lines emerge. These end in what are considered 4 parabolic antennae for some sort of communication. The antennae point to the 4 cardinal points. For crop circle analysts, these designs hold messages, and in this case, the message refers to an attempt to communicate through this shape, which alludes to 4 parabolic antennae pointing toward the 4 ways of the universe, and that appeared at the beginning of the season of crop circle messages in England, 2018. Following those symbols in the wheat fields in Wiltshire, this appeared overnight and measuring over 40 meters. It contains a figure that remits to the main symbol used by the Celts, called Triskele. Healing powers are often attributed to this symbol since it represents the unity of body, mind, and soul, with movement and in harmony. A millenary symbol that was used by the sage priests, astronomers, and druids. On top of that, 3 more circles are connected to the center circle via lines, representing the mystery of the Trinity and the number 3, the perfect number, which when you add it, becomes 6, the imperfect number. Multiplying it will result in 9, the divine number, which reminds us that Nikola Tesla said, if you only knew the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, then you would have the key to the universe. On June 9th, 2018, in the crop field of Hackben Hill, this shape over 40 meters wide appeared. It was researched by our correspondent in England, Gary King, who confirmed it is a legitimate design in a wheat field. According to King's interpretation, the circle in the middle represents the world, and the outer circle with 4 stars point to the 4 cardinal points, which represents the universe, the extension of the celestial vault. When the shapes were analyzed, it was discovered that this formation expresses the squareness of the circle, a shape that contains a subtle message. In sacred geometry, a circle's squareness represents a perfect harmony between the square and the circumference, as Leonardo da Vinci showed in the Vitruvian Man, and the perfect harmony of the man in the universe. The season of shapes that appear in crop fields continues in England. Designs that hold specific messages with a specific meaning. On July 14th, 2018, this surprising design showed up overnight, which suggests a black hole, or possibly an interdimensional portal in the crops of Somerset. The researchers at Crop Circle Connector state that it is a legitimate crop circle. It extends almost 100 meters of wheat plants. Experts are confounded. Look at the exact tracing that represents the geometry, as though particles were being pulled to the center of the black hole. They are also known as wormholes. Some believe a black hole can work as a portal, communicating 2 different places separated by extraordinary distances, through which matter can travel. This opens the possibility that these are attempts at communicating by other intelligent beings. Are we being told how they reach our planet over vast distances? Another design believed to not be created by a hoaxer was discovered on the very same date of July 14th in the crops of Winterbourne Bassett. This extraordinary circle design appeared. It is noteworthy because of its precision and perfection and its extension of over 50 meters. Expert analysts believe it refers to a dimensional portal, in this case with a series of 6 arches from the biggest to the smallest, at the center with a triangular shape. Shapes that appear suddenly in complete darkness and then have appeared for over 35 years, which is why they are considered an attempt at communication from other intelligent beings. In April 2018, English researcher Gary King reported the strange appearance of a phantom shape in the crops of England. Watch and listen carefully to why they are called phantom shapes. On July 18, 2017, in this same field of Clay Hill, this design of over 70 meters appeared overnight. It appeared on wheat fields. Later on, the wheat plants were cut to plant canola plants in 2018, and the canola plants didn't grow in the place where the figure had shown up in 2017. It is evident that some kind of energy lingered on the ground for over 300 days since the appearance of this shape on July 18, 2017. This residual energy caused the canola plants not to grow, resulting in the previous shape. Researcher Gary King reported the appearance of the phantom shape where the 6-point star had already appeared.
And then this year, the field has been planted with canola.
In 2017. This year, the field was planted with canola, and the formation remained untouched, proving the growth phenomenon in the area shows that the canola didn't grow. It is very immature in the area where the shape appeared. You can see that it appeared in the same spot and again a year later, but it is a phantom shape. Never before, in the 20 years that we have been studying spiral flattening, have we seen such a clear phantom design as this. The existence of this phantom shape proves that the design of July 2017 was not a man-made hoax. The unexpected appearance of a crop circle in Switzerland coincided with the death of the field's owner. It was taken as a sign by the inhabitants of Berna. On June 18, 2018, a dear friend of Tercer Millennial, the painter Rosana Duran, recognized for spearheading the coal art movement in Mexico and the world, reported to Tercer the unusual appearance of a crop circle very close to her residence in a wheat field in Berna. Curiously, the crop circle appeared during an emotional moment for the owners of the field. Since the day before the appearance of the symbol, the family's grandfather, who had dedicated his entire life to agriculture and loved the field profoundly, suddenly passed away. When people attended his funeral, they noticed the symbol. Puzzled, they were profoundly surprised at the mysterious coincidence of both events. The circle has been interpreted by the Swedish as an unequivocal representation of love coming from the unexplainable habits of the cosmos, created by supreme intelligences who write their geometric words on wheat. The crop circle presented a perfectly traced circular shape with a diameter of 50 meters and consisted of 12 left-leaning blades. What is the original purpose of this design? Why was it created? Is this a coincidence or something more meaningful, perhaps even spiritual? Finally, here are a few of the most important crop circles from the 2018 season. Here is a complex shape containing 18 5-point stars. It's also worth noting the figure that turned up overnight on July 14th, which suggests a black hole or portal in the field of Somerset. The design that appeared on the same day as July 14th in winter-born Bassett is also notable. A progression of triangles made up of arches. Watch closely. Since they are not created by human hands or hoaxers, they are possibly created by other intelligent beings in an attempt at communication with mankind. Jaime Maussan regularly appears on Mexican TV to cover controversial ET-related material, and here he unveils some of his most interesting crop circles shown to mankind.
Este apareció el 6 de junio de 2014, 60 años después del desembarco de Lombardía, y que dice, no más guerras. No More War, está en código Morse, el mismo día. El 25 de octubre del 2012, esta es la cámara de Televisa que está frente al Popo. Esto lo presentó Joaquín. Unos días después aparecieron estas espirales en el Monte Catedral, en el Servicio Meteorológico Nacional, un radar meteorológico. Fueron captadas por los sistemas de la NOAA, Intellicast y también el Servicio Meteorológico Nacional. Ve la comparación con los campos de trigo en Inglaterra.
Son como mandalas, ¿no?
Sí, bueno, a mí me parece que son intentos de comunicación. Ahorita vamos a hablar de lo que significa, ¿no? Fundamentalmente. Tú puedes ver, y esto ha seguido ocurriendo. Ya limpiaron el radar, ya lo desarmaron, ya lo rearmaron y siguen presentándose. La espiral es una constante en el cielo, en la tierra. Precisamente en noviembre del 74 se manda este mensaje, vamos a correrlo, y entonces llega la respuesta. A la izquierda está el mensaje que nosotros mandamos.
¿Cómo lo mandamos?
A través del radiotelescopio de Arecibo, nuestro mensaje 27 años de edad.
I think in the crop circles in England and everywhere else, they are trying to tell us just one thing. You are not alone. Now we are hearing these noises. The hum is the same. You are not alone. They are trying to tell us just one thing. You are not alone. Because when we accept that we are not alone, we are going to need to change. This phenomenon is important because it's going to make us mature. I consider that we are cosmic adolescents. We have to become cosmic adults, young adults, if you like. But we have to be more mature. We're destroying our planet. We're destroying animals. We're destroying everything we are in touch with. We have to change. And for me, the only reason I am analyzing this phenomenon, I'm trying to prove this reality, is because it's going to make us change. There is nothing else that is going to make humanity as a whole change. The depletion of the coral reef is more important than anything that is being said in the news right now. People, we are crazy. I mean, we prefer a concert, we prefer a football game, we prefer that what is happening really. That, we are exterminating all the fauna, the tigers, the lions, the rhinos, everything. Everything is the sixth extinction is on its way.
The technology to induce such an effect to a plant on a scale like this simply does not currently exist. Obviously, this is a piece of technology that we cannot truly understand, yet someone or something has access to it. They are possibly created by other intelligent beings in an attempt at communication with mankind.